So, hello and welcome to another happiness question answer show. Please ask me some questions. It makes the show a bit easier for me because it's a bit weird talking to myself for a long time. So, um, ask your hardest questions. It actually makes the show a lot more interesting. What is this show about? Well, happiness is everything to do with life. So you can ask questions about personal stuff like how do you become less stressed out in life? What's the purpose of life? It could be bigger questions like what's a better economic system? You'd be surprised that there are really simple answers to all of these things. Not only simple theoretical answers, but answers that have been proved to work. So they're not just theory. And the last thing I want to say is that these are not last thing I want to say is in my intro is that these are not my ideas. These are ideas from Islam, which is a very inclusive religion. I like to point out because people go, oh no, it's just talking about Islam. That's like against, I don't know, Christianity and Judaism. It's like people who are from the Middle East who are Christian and Jews, for example, first of all, they're indistinguishable. That would be one thing. And they also know that our religions are very, very similar. It's just propaganda on the news. So, anyway, getting a bit sidetracked there, but, or maybe it's not really, kind of explaining things as much as I can. So, yeah, these are ideas that have worked for centuries and are for all human beings. Basically, ideas that are based on the design of human beings, the psychology of human beings. So they work for human beings of all types, whether they're religious or not. So please just, you know, take part in the show. I would love it. And don't feel like I would be upset if you're, I don't know, come up with a really difficult question and all that kind of stuff. It's really important that we talk nowadays. People are so separated and disconnected, and they're all in their camps of I'm a lefty, I'm a righty, and I'm a religious person, I'm an anti-religious person, all this kind of stuff. And part of this show is to realize that we can be a lot more connected. Anyway, so today's show is supposed to be about why do we need to believe in God and how do we know God must exist? That kind of stuff. I've got tons of stuff to talk about today. But before I do, I love to do a little quick takeaway from the show. So I talk about a happiness tip every week. I do this 7 to 8 p.m. UK time. Also, check out Big Questions Answered. There you go. I'm trying to point out the little bit of writing there.com. You can, if you want to check out the other shows. So I'm going to quickly get into something. Here we go. Happiness tip. There's a lot of stuff. So let me just. So meditation is a big thing right nowadays in the West. People are trying to find some sort of inner peace, and there's meditation. There's this idea of being present, and what else? Just breathe. I hear that a lot. That seems to be core to somehow finding inner peace. And what I want to talk about is Islam's solution to it, because we don't do meditation, we do praying, okay, which is quite a different thing, although it might look similar. Well, praying's got the benefits of meditation, but it also does other stuff, okay. So, but here's I like to quote something from either Prophet Muhammad each week or the Quran, to enlighten us, make life easier really quickly. Here we go. You know what, I'm going to copy paste this because it's a bit of a long quote. Pretty long quote. Copy. I think I'll put it in the chat. Would it be good in the chat, or let's put it in the banner? Let's have some fun and put it in the banner. I think it will look cool. I'm not sure. It's all an experiment. How does that come out? If I click that. Okay, cool. So this is from the Quran. Go check out the verse number, but yeah, maybe I'll show you how to find the Quran online. It's all free. You can find these things pretty easily yourself. But anyway, As to those who disbelieve, their deeds are like a mirage in the desert. The thirsty one thinks it to be water until, when he comes upon it, up to it, he finds it nothing, and he finds Allah near him, when who then fully pays him his account, and Allah is swift in reckoning. I'm not sure if you would have understood that. It's probably not easy to understand. I think the Quran is something you sit down and read slowly, and when you read it from verse to verse, people tend to understand it. Um, but well, they tend to understand it if they don't come with an expectation that it's like a normal book. There's a great TED talk. I love TED talks, TED talk about reading the Quran by a Jewish lady. Very popular TED talk about how to understand the Quran. But anyway, so what does that even mean? What's it got to do with how is it a better solution to meditation? Well, uh, the problem in our lives today is that we feel that we're never enough, and that is a symptom of materialism. And what materialism does is that you think that you can buy happiness, and when you buy that iPhone or whatever it is, okay, then you're happy for like 5 seconds. You might, yeah, and then very quickly you realize that you're not happy anymore, and you go, oh, what I really needed is something more expensive, something, the other thing. And it keeps going on and on. And that's why we never feel like we can calm down and be present, as it were, because we're constantly chasing. And that's what this verse of the Quran is saying. It's basically saying people who disbelieve, and disbelieve is not kind of an insult as such, it's not a good thing, but the idea of it is like, if you believe, then you'll be freed of materialism, because you believe in something else will make you happier, which is God, right? And that's a whole topic for today, really. How can God make you happy? Does that make sense? All that kind of stuff. So actually, it's also about proving God exists. So two things in one. But anyway, what was I saying? Yeah. So basically, this verse is saying people who disbelieve, their deeds, their works are like a mirage in the desert. So what is a mirage? It's kind of you think it's water in a distance because it's all wavy on the floor, but when you get to the mirage, it's not there, because obviously it's an illusion. It's not really there. There's no real water in the desert. But if you see it in the desert, that's pretty terrible, I would say, because you'd be really thirsty, and then you run up to it, and then it's not there. So yeah, pretty bad experience. And yeah, and then you keep doing that because you keep seeing mirage after mirage in the distance, because a mirage is always in the distance. And I'm not sure if you're getting the point of this verse, but basically the idea is that you're constantly chasing. That's what God knows about, or has created you with. If you chase materialism, that's sort of your punishment. So that's the idea of, and you'll find God who pays your account, which is you will constantly have this heart burning sensation that what's wrong, it's nothing's, and nothing ever seems to be enough. And that's where this idea of being present, this desperate need to be present and not be chasing stuff or regretting stuff and stuff like that, yeah, it's just two sides of the same coin, chasing stuff and regretting stuff, because you regret stuff because you feel like, if only I did something else, then I would have that other thing that you're chasing. So basically, meditation is not really going to solve the problem. It doesn't get to the heart of the matter. And if connecting with God does get to the heart of the matter, and I said I'm going to keep this short, I'm going to keep it one more minute longer, you can very quickly find inner peace. This show is not about being critical, it's about finding solutions, but sometimes you have to point out the problem. Okay, so a very quick solution: if you're feeling not at present, then simply start remembering your creator. And as soon as you start doing that, remembering him and being thankful, and remembering means like thinking about like that, just realizing that you have been created, and it's a very natural and honest thing to do, which I'll talk about. Like, why is it an honest thing to believe in God? And you will very quickly find peace, because, well, the Quran definitely promises that. It says hearts can find peace or comfort in the remembrance of God. So remember God in your own way and test it out. Okay, just breathing doesn't really help, but it helps a little bit in this weird kind of side effect. It's not. It's like meditation bumped into something, a benefit by accident, sort of thing. And when you breathe and you concentrate on the breathing, maybe you become grateful for the fact that you are alive and you're breathing. So being grateful for that is good, but psychologically and logically, it doesn't make sense to be grateful unless you're grateful to something. So you need to believe in God to really feel the benefits of being grateful. I'm rushing through that. I think I've gone through quite a few ideas, maybe complex ideas, really quickly. And I've talked about the benefits of meditation versus prayer. I can go back to if you want me to talk about it. But yeah, the only real benefit of meditation, in short, is that it effectively puts you closer to a sleep state. You're actually better off taking a short nap in the middle of the day, especially, which has been proved by psychologists that is really good for you. And again, is a teaching of Islam to have a short nap in the middle of the day. Okay, let's move on to the actual topic. So, why should we believe in God? So, I love kind of doing the opposite of a politician. So, politicians give a long answer and tell you nothing often, let's just say. Try not to be too insulting. Maybe I should avoid that. But let's say that's their reputation. So, I want to do the opposite and tell you everything in short. And what is everything? Well, there's three parts. There's the misunderstandings about the belief in God, and then there's like the proof that God exists. It's pretty short and simple. And then why you should believe in God. Like, how does it make your life better? Okay, so I will just pick out the 3 points for each of those things really quickly, and then I'll go through them. Oh, I should be checking the. Let me just at least get on the comments, and then I'll get started with comments. Where are you? Okay, so I'll undo this. Each week I'm trying to be a little bit better. So I am going to not leave that on the screen for the whole show like I've done in the past. Then I'll go to the comments if a question comes up. And that's another thing. What was it? Sometimes people ask questions and I don't see it. I think it's a glitch in StreamYard. I'm not sure, or maybe I just don't notice it. So please ask your question maybe more than one time. It might help. If you don't get an answer in like 5 minutes, or I don't say, hey, thanks for the question, that kind of thing. Anyway, let's get started. Misunderstandings, first of all. So this will probably blow your mind, I suppose. Muslims were the first people to talk about evolution. So we're like, what? Why would Muslims talk about evolution? It's in the Quran, that's why. It's in the second verse of the Quran. So yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. So yeah, you can Google all this stuff, by the way. Muslims, evolution, when did they start talking about it? You might be convinced that it was Darwin, but if you do a bit of research, the idea of evolution, it existed a long time before him. And then you go, why would they have this pin-up boy, as it were, poster child of evolution? Why would they choose Darwin and all that stuff? There are lots of, let's say, logical reasons to do a certain kind of propaganda. But anyway, we can go into that at some point. But yeah, he definitely was not the first person to talk about evolution. In the second verse of the Quran, it says, all praise, all thanks belong to God, the Lord, which is a very rough translation of the sustainer who creates in stages. the evolutioner, the evolutionist, whatever you want to call it. Basically, the creator who's the evolver. That's a good word. Yeah. So evolver. It's just an English word, evolver, but creates and stages is very descriptive. If you want to understand how Arabic works, you might be thinking maybe I'm making up that meaning. You can actually, if you ask me about it, I could actually show you screen and find out how to work out meanings of Arabic words. They're very mathematical, let me say. They're not vague, and you can't attribute any meaning you like to these words. Okay, so when I say mathematical, it's kind of like a root system, and they inherit meanings for different roots or something. Very precise. That's what I mean by mathematical. Okay, so I said I was going to be quick. Let's move on to a quick second point. Sorry, I'm going through. I have to scroll down to my little notes to remind myself of all the different ideas I had. Okay. Oh yeah. So how do we know God exists? Right. Because of simple probabilities. It's the chances of God. I'm sorry, I'm not looking. Let me look into the cam. Okay, so the chances of God existing is, this is being very nice, but let's say 0.9999999. Oh yeah, 1 means 100%, right? So let's call it percentage just in case that doesn't make sense to you because you're not into mathematics. Let's say the chances of God existing is 99.99999 forever percent. Basically almost 100%. And you might say, oh, you're just making that up. How can you say that thing? Like, there are, well, I'll get into that in a second. I was going to say what Richard Dawkins said. He said it was 70%, but he just plucked that out of thin air, by the way. But let me talk about mathematically or statistically how we can come to such a number. So just to talk about, I'll talk about it generally in a really simple way. Okay, because actually what I was trying to get across is that it's really simple. Let me go to, so the really simple idea is if you saw a robot walking around and somebody said it wasn't made, you would laugh at him or her. Okay, you would be like, of course it was made. Where's the factory? I want to know. Was it Boston Dynamics? Because they're really cool at making these super high-tech computers that look like human beings and act like human beings and dogs and stuff like that. Oh, must be Boston Dynamics or some super high-tech company, right? In Silicon Valley or something, right? No. They'll say, no, it's just what it was, right? There's this whole junk metal lying around, they'll tell you, and there's wind and rain and rust, and it got blown around and pieces came together, and slowly they made a microchip. Okay, and then the microchip got stuck onto these wires. Like, you'd be like, listen, don't waste my time. That would be your honest response. Like, please just tell me where this cool robot came from. Don't tell me this rubbish that it just came from all over the place and came to. So we know logically in real life, let's say real life, anything that's not to do with God, when we're not biased against this idea that when we really don't want to disbelieve in God, then when we're outside that mindset, our logic works normally. But when it comes to God, often we're so biased against it that we stop thinking, I would call it logically. Okay. But it's not just logic. It is a lot of propaganda, and I fell for it. I was an atheist for a bit, so I can understand, and maybe I'll talk about that. Q, I have a question. Mr. Tariq Safir, I appreciate the question, whatever you've written there. Maybe I talk about it. I'm just going to spend a quick wrap up of my last point, which is so there's three things that we're talking about really today in answer to the question, should we believe in God? Like, what's the benefit? How do we know God exists? And the third thing, which is the first thing I just mentioned, which is misunderstandings. There's so many things we just don't understand about the whole topic. That really confuse us about what's really going on in this topic of belief in God. So very quickly, what have I got here? Yeah, why does it matter that we believe in God? So I'm always going to throw in this because I want to be super logical. There's psychological, scientific research that says if you believe in God, you're far more likely to be a kinder person. Okay. And that should not at all be a surprise if we're being logical about it, because kindness is not an automatic activity. The opposite of kindness is an automatic activity. Being selfish, what you see in big cities where people don't make eye contact, don't go out of their way to be nice to each other, or get lonely because they're not talking to anybody themselves, and all that kind of stuff, all these kind of things, that's automatic. Okay, kindness is a uphill struggle. Okay, and religion pushes you with the community in that uphill struggle, and it's also a mindset. Okay, uh, like you're constantly telling, uh, as religion does, that everybody's your brothers and sisters. We're all part of the same progeny, as it were. Okay, I don't want to get in the definition of children of Adam, that because that's a lot of misunderstanding. Because I don't believe Adam was one person. It's just I'll get into that one second. Okay, let's get into whatever Tariq Safir has got to say. So let's click on this. I haven't even read it. Probably should read it a little bit. No swear words on it, Tariq, are there? In what way should we understand the Holy Ghost? Okay, cool. Okay, so I had to check that there's no swear words, no bad stuff before I click on it. I'm trying to be responsible. Okay, so in what way should we understand the Holy Quran? Maths miracles of the Holy Quran is a video I've seen. I'm not sure that's how Muslims should look at the Holy Quran, e.g., X number means X. Okay, and then he's got a sort of continuation. We should look into the commentary. Okay, cool. Okay, so yeah, so you're gonna have to help me out, Tariq, to try to explain your question a bit more. I think I get some sort of idea of what you're asking. Sometimes I get confused about what the question is. So, and that's the good thing about live. You can tell me like, oh, I mean that kind of thing. So let me get started. So I've seen those videos about maths miracles. There's all sorts of amazing, let's say, miracles about how many what's it called, instructions there are, like 777, and all sorts of funny numbers that come up. And they can be of some benefit. There are, like, for example, if you multiply the definition of the different years of the days in the Quran are described in different ways. So there's one place in the Quran where it says the days are worth 50,000 years of your life. One day is worth that. So if you multiply them, you get the age of the universe and stuff like that. So I get what you're saying, and I also get your sort of skepticism maybe towards it, or not leaning towards it. And I too don't really pay attention to that kind of stuff. I'm more interested in how can we really benefit people, and that's the thing you can focus on. So I agree with that. I'm not sure if that's what you're saying, but I agree with that. And also then you said a great point, which I'll click on again, which is you should probably be better off, rather than just watching videos. I think Derek is suggesting, rather than just watching video about these maths miracles, it's better to actually read all the detailed explanations known as a commentary on the Holy Quran, and so you can understand these things yourself if you. Well, that's not entirely true, but yeah, you can understand a lot if you take time to read it. You read the Quran yourself, and then you can say, does that commentary make sense to me? So yeah, just spend time reading it, reading the Quran on a daily basis. You gain a lot from it. And since Tariq mentioned this this commentary. I'm going to show you how to get to it, because this show is about enabling people to learn for themselves. I think that's really useful, rather than just depending on me answering certain questions, which I've actually just got from websites like this. There's a very important website I'm about to show you. Let me just get the right let me see what's the best option. Oh, that looks good. I need to share screen. Share screen. Yep. Then I click on that. Okay, so right now you can see all my little notes. But here it is. Okay, so I was looking for stuff before. So there's this amazing website called Al Islam. It means kind of means the Islam. Okay. The real Islam, maybe? I don't. Well, I do know, but I'm not going to go into it. And so if you go to alislam.org, then let me just go to Holy Quran page, or maybe it's the home page. I'll go to the home page so you know how to find it. So you go to the home page, then it says Holy Quran on the top. And if you scroll down, you've got all these different things. You've got short commentary. I'm not sure if you can see that. Maybe I'll make it super large. There we go. But if you go to the 5-volume commentary, you can go through the Quran and it'll give you a lot of detail about each of the chapters, their history, and all sorts of things, which is really hard to research yourself. So it's really, really helpful. There's all sorts of searches that you can do by words. So if I say anything, you can search it. So I'll go back to Holy Quran and I'll say, what was I know, talking about before? I don't know, I was talking about a whole bunch of stuff, but something like what comes to mind is, if I just write the word self, I don't know, self, there we go. It's a verse that I was actually thinking about earlier on, which we'll probably talk about, a very interesting one, about one of the proofs of God. So yeah, really, so if I say something, you can just type in a couple of the words I've said, and it's really easy. If I don't mention the verse of the Quran, because I'm going through things quite quickly, but you can always ask me. So anyway, Tariq, does that kind of explain what you're asking about? This is an interesting look, how it's sharing the screen. Maybe I wanted something bigger. Maybe I should do like not me and the, maybe I should have done this one. Ooh, that's better, kind of. And maybe I should hide that. Okay, anyway, I'm going to go back to my face. Here we go, back to the face. There we go. Awesome. I'm learning how to use this more and more. Okay. Oh, cool. I'm glad I answered the question, Tariq. Please ask more questions if you like. I really appreciate anybody who asks questions. I think it kind of probably helps the, what's it called, the algorithm, YouTube algorithm. Maybe you encourage other people to watch it if you value this stuff. I know I'm going to sound like a YouTuber. Please like and subscribe. Not because I particularly care for likes and subscribes personally. It's just that if you like it, and if you personally like it and then you press the like button, what you're doing is you're basically saying, I'm playing my part and I'm going to encourage the YouTube algorithm to tell other people about it. So please do like it, just watch the video anytime, or comment, ask questions. Yeah, it helps me be more useful, and helps the algorithm. So let's stop talking about the algorithm, me, and let's get on with the rest of it. So what have I got to talk about next? So now I'm going to kind of slowly work my way through some more ideas. So yeah, let's go to a misunderstanding. Yeah, another misunderstanding is evolution does not mean no God, it's just stages. So there's loads of people who realize that. One of the more famous people who believe it is I get I was going to say Richard Attenborough, but that's David Attenborough's brother. So David Attenborough, the famous wildlife commentator and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, he said, like, yeah, definitely God could exist, but he's not sure. But he also said that, why do people think that just because there's evolution that there's no God? And that's one of the many misunderstandings, and that's why a lot of people think to be honest to science, they must not believe in God, which is completely wrong. There are lots of scientists, even what's he call it, Nobel Prize winners in biology and things like that, who realize that God must exist. So yeah, it's just not true that science is the opposite of religion. It can be the opposite of religion if a person's religion is, believing in all sorts of strange fairy tales, and that happens in all religions, including Islam. I was told by a Muslim that he believes in giants and all sorts of weird stuff. So, and I don't want to be insulting. So, if you actually do believe that, which is probably a lot of people, and Christians and whatever believe all sorts of stuff, you can ask me about it. I'm trying not to. I'm just saying I don't think that sounds very scientific. But if you got any evidence, we can talk about it. But yeah. But what I'm trying to say is I can understand that a lot of people disbelieve in religion because they think it's not scientific. And hopefully, what you're hearing here is 100% scientific. I'm from the Ahmadiyya Muslim community all around the world. We believe one thing. We're all in agreement. It's not like we're coming up with all different ideas, because we have like one leader called a Khalifa. It's a spiritual leader. So we're very unified in our ideas. We're not all mixed up. But the people who believe something else, they're from all these kind of disparate groups. From one mosque to the other, believe in different things. So there isn't another organization as unified as the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, which is basically just Islam. It's the promised rejuvenation of faith, in fact, not just Islam. Well, Islam is the same thing. But anyway, if you want to know about that, search maybe Promised Messiah or something. You might find out more. Or Love for All, Hatred for None is our motto. We're famous for that around the world. Okay, so let's move on. So what was I saying? Misunderstandings. Evolution does not mean you cannot believe in God. It just means things are in stages. And as I said earlier on, the Quran itself talks about, things being created in stages. So not really a new idea, and it's not an idea that only atheists believe in, but they have a different idea of how evolution works, which I can talk about in a bit. I'm just trying to go in kind of a methodical way about so I'm going through, I go through a misunderstanding, and then I go through, what's it called, a proof that God must exist, and then I go to why it matters that God exists. Keep going in that cycle. Hopefully that'll be useful. Oh, and I should quickly explain, why am I doing that? Why am I talking about in a happiness show? Maybe I should have said that in the beginning, but I'm just practicing. I'll probably come back to this this topic at some point, more practiced in the future. But the whole point is that maybe it's obvious already, because I'm talking about why it matters that you believe in God. Because why it matters is that it makes you a happier person, is a short version. And there's lots of psychological evidence for it. There's lots of logical reasons for it, things like that. So it really helps humanity a lot if you believe in God. And then you might say, no, that's not true. There's lots of wars created by religious people. Short answer to that is far, far more people were killed by overtly, clearly atheist groups, communist groups. Stalin killed, I don't know how many, 20 million people or something, far more than anything you saw in Europe in the Western Front or anything like that. So that kind of stuff. Eastern Front, Western Front, I get them mixed up now. Anyway, so yeah, that's not something you can. It's not valid. What's it called? Valid argument. Atheism, if you really look at it, killed a lot more people than any sort of religious conflict. And all the conflicts today, you could say, are essentially atheist because they're not religious. Yeah, the conflicts. What I mean, all the, let's say, the Iraq War. Was that a religious war? No, not really. It's just, some would argue that's an oil war, and many other oil wars like it. So not religious and arguably atheist. You can argue with me. You can tell me that I'm wrong. Maybe we can talk about it. Okay, so yeah, another proof that God exists. I like to keep it super simple in the beginning, maybe. Yeah, the camel poop example is the what my note says. Um, I don't know where it's come from, but one of my spiritual teachers, known as the fourth Khalifa, used to say this one a lot. He said there was a very poor, uneducated man, and he said, "How do you know God exists?" To him, I said, "Well, I can see camel poop there, and I know that poop didn't come from nowhere. I know that if there's camel poop, there was a camel. And so, in the same way, if I can see myself as human beings and the stars and the universe and all the things that are keeping me alive, I know that it didn't happen by accident." And somehow, maybe that sounds, some people want to feel clever and they want it to be complicated, and it justifies them not believing in God at the moment, and they don't want to feel silly. But actually, to be able to believe in God, you need some humility, because as I've talked about, if you really want to be happy, you want to let go of your ego, because your ego is constantly telling you to do stupid things, you know, like, I don't know, saying, I'm really important, I want to get out of this relationship that I'm in with my loving wife or girlfriend, whatever it is. I'm going to find something better because you know, I'm worth it or something. That's your ego talking, making you do stupid things. And then you jump for somebody else, I don't know, out there who you don't even know, and it's your ego just making you do stupid things. So, oh, by the way, you can ask me about anything, by the way. You don't have to talk about God. Anything to do with happiness, please ask me. That's another thing I forgot. I am trying to do this thing. It was suggested to me to try to stick to one topic, and it kind of makes sense to me, because then I can really talk about that topic. And sometimes when I try to talk about lots of things, and as I did in previous shows, what happens is I kind of run out of time trying to talk about too many things. So just talking about one thing, pretty interesting idea. I'm going to keep trying it. Yeah. Okay, so that's a camel poop example. And now I'm going to go to the next thing on my very long list. Why it matters. Back to that. Oh, yeah, so I've only done the short version of this. So let me talk about the long version of this. No. Okay. Maybe a copy. Is it worth copying? No, it's not worth copying. Scientific and psychological research increasingly suggests that religious teachings make us happier, stop depression, and fix other social issues. Those are my notes on that. And let me go into some sort of depth to explain that. I think I will copy it, because what I do is I cut these. I make chapters in these videos, and so it's nice to have a little graphic, I suppose, that people can concentrate on. It's like live editing. Here we go. Oh, I have to click on it as well. That's my little note, and then I'll be talking about it. Okay, so scientific and psychological research suggest that religious teachings make us happier. So it's why I do repeat things, because I want to show how simple happiness stuff is. So if you see my previous shows, you'll know that I talk about a TED talk where buying stuff for other people actually makes you happier. Yeah, this is very much a religious teaching. In all different religions, they talk about being generous. There's a saying by Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, which is completely the opposite of materialism. Okay, and it goes, paradise is the home of the generous. Okay, and in Islam, paradise is in this life and the next. You get in this life for practicing these teachings. Okay, so it's not like you can just make the stuff up, because ordinary human thinking thinks exactly the opposite. It's like, I want to get more stuff for myself. Okay, so yeah, more and more people are realizing, doing psychological and sociological, whatever you call it, experiment, and they're going, oh, all these religious teachings, they make us happy. I could go on and on and on about these things. I think last time I talked about smiling is charity. That's another saying of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And it turns out smiling is charity, because you can actually give your smile to other people. What happens is you smile, and then the other person who sees the smile, they're hardwired to imitate that, because for some reason you need to imitate it, and then you feel it, and then you empathize, and you go, oh, but what happens is when I smile, for example, automatically I'll get a dopamine hit. That's a chemical that makes you happy. Okay, there's serotonin as well. No, forget that. Okay, so yeah, makes you happy, and then they get the smile. They imitate it. They smile, the person you smile at, and they get that dopamine hit. So you're basically giving them, you're transmitting happiness to them. So that's a good kind of charity. Even in Islam says shaking hands removes bad feelings between people. Okay, that's another saying of Prophet Muhammad. And then if you look into the evidence about neuropsychology, I suppose you call it, when you shake hands, is it dopamine? I think there's serotonin. Maybe I think I need to Google it or something. But all these happiness chemicals basically fire off when you're connecting. Let's do it. Connecting. There you go. There's a visual. There's a prop. My own hands. Okay, so yeah, there's so much deep, amazing stuff in religion. And one of the reasons why people don't believe in God is because they think it doesn't matter. Like, it's almost better for us not to believe in God because there's no benefit in it. But when people realize that there's some benefit in it, maybe they'll think twice about rejecting it, and hopefully they'll won't be so quick to reject it for many reasons. One, the logical reason, like, actually it's far more likely that God exists than not. Just simple probabilities. And let's get back to the other point, actually, because I'm about to make another point, which was, I totally missed the first thing. I just realized the simple probabilities one I didn't go into, so I'm going to go into, because I said it really quickly. So simple probabilities, hemoglobin number. Let's talk about that. Okay, so what is hemoglobin? It's the thing, I believe it's the thing that makes your blood cells go red. So it's even smaller than your individual blood cells. They're pretty small. You can't see your blood cells with your eyes. I don't think yeah, let's not go into that. So they're pretty small, and even smaller than that is the hemoglobin. And basically, I think that's an enzyme or a protein. I'm getting them all mixed up. I'll have to Google it. But they're basically little machines. Your whole body is full up with little machines. You remember we talked about the machines, the robots, and you wouldn't believe a robot just made itself through rain and natural forces, as if that's some sort of mechanism to make things. It's probably, if anything, scientifically, it's a mechanism for destroying things. Because there's scientific law. I can't remember what it's called. But basically, it means that things degenerate. They don't. It takes mind or consciousness or organizational or planning to actually create things. And we know that. Like, things that just make themselves. You don't just wait for millions of years and hope your house will be built. It just doesn't happen like that. So basically, there's millions of robots inside ourselves, microscopic robots that are doing absolutely high-tech, amazing things that we can't even make into one of those robots. Yeah, so hemoglobin is one of those kind of things. And I think the number is 10 to the power 50 chance, or 1 over 1 divided by 10 to the power 50. So it's such a huge number that basically, even if it went through an evolutionary cycle every second throughout from the beginning of the universe, you would not have enough time till now to make one haemoglobin enzyme. Should I check it? I don't know what is. Anyway, so one of these things, right? And that's not even to make one blood cell. Never mind make a human being, which is hearts, lungs, brains, millions of neurons, so many things, so many other kinds of robots inside ourselves. So yeah, it's just not realistic to deny God. That's it, really. That's just one example, really. It's so impossible for God not to exist. Okay, I'm just wondering what my sentences are like. I'm trying to avoid double negatives. Okay, so bit of water. I watched a film and it said double negatives are bad. It's an awesome film. I'm trying to remember what that film was. Anyway, something about the truth. I can't remember. Anyway, here we go. Let's go back to the beginning, which is misunderstandings. Darwin's idea. Let's copy this. Ah, that was, see, I forgot to undo the last thing I did. Let's hide that, edit that, click, paste, delete the new line, save, click again, and we got the new one, new graphic. There we go. Darwin's idea that creation was accidental, propelled by rain, wind, etc., and not directed by an intelligent being. So this is something I probably should have explained a bit more, maybe. So I believe in evolution. The Quran teaches evolution right in the beginning, but yeah. So, but what is the difference between, let's say, Darwin's idea, although it wasn't really just his idea, but anyway, his idea is that there's no God. It just happened. All these stages just happened. Well, not just happened. It was like survival of the fittest. Really got to explain this. So one of the reasons why people like myself included fall into the trap of believing in atheism is that they try to make it sound convincing by saying vague ideas that make sense if you don't inspect the idea, let's say, if you don't go into the idea and break it down. Okay, so it kind of just sounds good. Survival of the fittest. Okay, I'm gonna tell you what survival of the fittest means after I describe it. And I often get told, "Oh, you don't know." Like if I'm like explaining to an atheist that this doesn't make sense, and I go through it, they say, "Oh no, you don't understand what evolution means." And I'm like, "Please, just tell me what evolution means." We keep going through the definition according to whatever they say, and then, yeah. I mean, basically, give me your definition, then I'll explain it according to that. Yeah, if you don't agree with what I'm about to say. So, Darwin's idea is that you go through lots of stages, and there's no intelligent mind behind it. It's all sorts of random events like rain and wind and whatever, and that somehow puts things together in super complex high-tech things together, like your nail. Your fingernail is far more complicated than anything human beings have made. In fact, the Quran says you cannot even challenges human beings. They cannot even make a gnat, which is a super tiny kind of fly. Okay, so we'll see in the future what happens. So yeah, so that's Darwin's idea. What is the Islamic idea? The Islamic idea is described as probably comes into my next point, which is the universe is like a palace paved with clear glass slabs, okay, under which there is a power, and then we mistake the so sorry. It says under which there's a rushing river. Maybe I should bring it up. It's so cool the way it's. Let me just search Glass Palace, and then I'll talk about it. Glass Palace. Let's just put the old. Glass Palace. Okay. So, by the way, the Quran is in Arabic. Okay. And then here's a translation. There's another language called Urdu, Pakistani language. And then we can get to the commentary if you want later on by clicking that. And then click on this and you get that, just so if you want to do it. Actually, I think you need a setting done up here. So you make sure that is selected as one of my selections. I like that. Anyway, yeah. So often things are told as stories, but anyway, this is a way of. Yeah. So this is a way of proving to the Queen of Sheba that indeed God does exist, and then after this proof, the Queen of Sheba realizes that God indeed exists. So it is a glass palette paved smooth with glass. Sorry, it's oh there. I'm kind of missing bits. So she goes into this palace and she thinks that she's walking on a great expanse of water. And she lifts up her clothes, wondering, "Oh my gosh, I'm about to get wet." Her shanks means clothes, and basically, it's not. It's a palace paved smooth with slabs of glass. I'm probably saying it all wrong. Anyway, the point is that we sometimes we look at, say, I don't know, Jupiter or something, and go, "Wow, that's super powerful," but what we see is Jupiter, but what we don't see is the great power behind it. So how is that in any way some sort of proof? Okay, if you look at the mechanics, let's say, as if we have a physical mechanical universe, it's absolutely amazing how everything just functions like clockwork, but with invisible paths. And again, the Quran talks about these invisible paths that everything glides along. So even if you look closer to home, we don't have to go all the way to outer space, universe, to Jupiter and all this kind of stuff. We can just look closer to home and look at the amazing power that's sustaining our lives. Let's talk about the water cycle that purifies the water, that carries tons of water to keep our very fragile bodies alive. If there's a drought for a little bit, we die. That drought might be like, a couple of weeks for us or something, even a couple of days. Even in England, we have droughts, okay, and we're surrounded by water. We cannot carry water very far because it's super heavy. I think it's like a ton for this much. Sorry, you can't see me at the moment, can you? So let me just go back to, I've got two screens, you see, and I get confused which way to click. Okay, there we go. So we're just still talking about this idea that Darwin's idea is that it was essentially a big mistake, lots and lots of them, and somehow lots of mistakes makes things better, which it doesn't. Okay, I was going to say how you should imagine Darwin's idea, an honest way of looking at Darwin's idea. Okay, Darwin's idea is essentially that I have a tray of metal bits. Let's be nice. Let's not put worms in there. Let's make it easier for Darwin's idea to work. Put all these metal bits that might eventually become microchips and things, and then bash it with a hammer. Yeah. I wouldn't put microchips in. I wouldn't put bits of metal and bash it with a hammer on a tray, expecting anything good to come out of it. And what's that got to do with Darwin's idea of evolution? Essentially, it's saying something like, if this piece of metal survives, and I don't think Darwinianists or people who believe in Darwin's idea of evolution believe things had to be alive all the way through. There were just lots of accidents, and eventually somehow they became alive. But they had to go through this idea of survival of the fittest. And survival of the fittest is, in short, a filtering process. It's not a creative process. It's a very big difference. When you filter things, they don't come together. You just remove stuff. It's not a creative process. You don't make stuff like that. So one way of removing stuff is bashing them until you destroy them. See, there's no logic in it. Quite frankly, there's no logic. As soon as you inspect the idea properly, there's no logic in it. It's really quite crazy. So I'm going to leave it at that, although this is kind of an idea that so many people believe in. Wait a second, 55 past? I was having so much fun. Okay, 5 minutes left. Maybe I'll check for a question. Wait a second. I thought it was my eyes for a second, because the time I'm looking at is quite far away from me. Oh my gosh, there's loads of questions. I'm so sorry. Kyle, I'm going to whack through this. I am so sorry. I was on the wrong mode. If I don't answer, I'm gonna go over time to answer these questions. Okay, that was my fault. I'm just not professional. And anything that I kind of really run out of time of, then I will comment in the section in the not live comments afterwards. Let's just get on with it. Okay, so hello. Opinion on Edge. Did he say, okay, maybe Ed Sheeran said something. Hello. Okay, I'm not going to click all of these, maybe. I don't know, okay. I was excited for a minute, Brooke Marks. I thought there's some proper questions. Anyway, same Brooke. Okay, brew. All right, never mind. Now at least I don't feel bad that I missed out your questions. Okay, so all right, let's get on with it. So I hope you're finding some of this interesting. I don't mind that people are kind of maybe what they call it, spamming, whatever. Because if you, the whole point of this is that maybe people accidentally learn the truth or something like that, learn something that might make their lives better and all that kind of stuff. So cool. Thanks for hanging around. Please do listen in. Okay, so let's quickly spend the last 3 minutes. You know what? I'm just going to jump to some stuff that people say, especially funny people like Ricky Gervais. Ricky Gervais, famous comedian, also famously atheist. I'm going to post it in the comments because that way I can look at the comments at the same time. I'm kind of learning as I go along. Then I'll click this. Okay. Yeah. So it's not really me commenting. It's just, well, it's me actually. So Ricky Gervais, famous comedian, also famously atheist, says this: the best advice I've ever received is no one else knows what they're doing either. Okay, so that's kind of a very important point, even though he's kind of joking. His idea is that what's the point of believing in God? It's not like those people who believe in God really know what they're talking about. They don't have logic on their side, and there's no benefit to it. We're all just guessing, essentially. And what I'm saying is that logically, God does exist. Statistically, mathematically, God does exist. And yeah, so yeah, it's and quite from what I've been talking about, it's quite clear that we do know what we're doing. Okay, I had a comment above. Okay, I'm looking for it. Oh, wait. Above my question, I'm looking for it. Sorry, maybe ask it again. I'm looking for it. Wait a sec. Is that a new question? Oh, okay, cool. Okay, sorry. Appreciate it. So there are many prophecies which have been fulfilled in the Holy Quran, which could not have been known and written by any man. Yeah. See, there's so, you know what? It's not surprising that I'm running out of time on this topic. Why? How do we know God exists? And Why do we need to believe in God? Because there's so much to say about it. There's so much evidence. There's so many reasons to believe in God. So, yes, there are so many great prophecies. Let me explain just one of them. So, there's a scientist or an archaeologist who actually became a Muslim after finding out about what one thing the Holy Quran said that it just could not have known. For example, that when Moses was being chased by the Pharaoh, um, and there's so many amazing details about this, just this one incident. And so we don't believe Moses split water in half as such. It was a bit more complex. We can talk about it. Search Sea of Reeds. He did not go to the Red Sea. But anyway, when the Pharaoh was about to die, he said, I believe. And then God said to him, which in the Quran it says that and now you believe when I'm about to drown you. Now you just want to, God says, you just want to save your body. So what I'm going to do is make you a sign for the rest of the world or future that I am going to save your body as a sign. Okay, so his body was preserved miraculously, and it's in the British Museum, as far as I understand. And basically, what was weird about him is that basically he's got sort of what was it, water, no, seaweed or some sort of things that you only get from the sea, and people didn't know that. Uh, so basically, what the archaeologist realized is that when he found this out, like he was the first person to find this out, and then he found out there was this prophecy in the Quran to preserve Pharaoh's life, and the right particular Pharaoh, yeah, the one that probably would have been alive at the time of Moses. He was like, wow, how can the Quran have prophesied or said this thing? So the Quran didn't say this is a prophecy, it just said this is what happened. And people didn't know that happened like that. And so, yeah, they took him out of the water, the Sea of Reeds, which is a relatively shallow area. But just to explain very quickly, what happens is that it was a very windy time, and this thing that happened where the water cleared from the ground enough for people to walk through, like Moses's followers. Um, has happened more than once. It actually still happens. Okay, so basically, the water was pushed off to one side with these reeds or something, and then when it came rushing back, as water does, when you put water in really quickly, it rises higher than the actual level. So anyway, he was taken out, this pharaoh, and put in his sarcophagus or whatever it is, and later on the evidence was shown that he actually came from this particular place. Yeah, so the whole story is true, and essentially the prophecy that his body would be preserved in the miraculous way has also been fulfilled. Yeah, so Tariq, I appreciate that. I wonder if there's any more comments. I'm just going to cut off now. Yeah, cool. Hopefully that helped, Tariq. Did that make any sense? Or maybe I was talking too quickly. I don't know. Cool. Anyway, thank you very much, Tariq. I really appreciate you taking part. Peace be upon you. That's the ancient way of saying, I wish you all the best, inner peace and everything. Muslims say that, Jews say that, Christians sometimes say that as well. Catch you next week. Cool. Thank you. I appreciate that, Tariq, that it answered your question.